This is a Stokke Xplory, and today we're going to give you some tips on what to look for when buying one of these used. There are many complex mechanisms on this model, and so I'm going to familiarize you with some of the different mechanisms and how they function, and which ones to check as far as resistance and so on, so that you don't buy a stroller that has damaged mechanisms on it. So we're going to start by removing the seat. The seat itself is something you'll want to check over in relation mainly to the textiles. In relation to the functions of the mechanisms, you'll want to make sure that it locks on and off of the chassis. That is done with this button here. Beyond that, however, there aren't any really complex mechanisms. So just have a quick look over for any sort of damage that might concern you in relation to how it looks. Otherwise, don't worry so much about it. In relation to the chassis, however, there are very many mechanisms. We'll start at the top. This lever here controls the height of the handle, and you'll want to try this at a few points and push up and down and make sure it can lock into various places. The actual mechanism is functioning further down inside the shaft, and if you find that it won't hold at various heights, it can be an indication of damaged parts inside, and could even be an indication that larger elements of the whole shaft are damaged. On the back side of the handle is this button here, and pushing this will adjust the angle of the handle. You want to try it locked and press down and make sure that it also doesn't pop out of place and push downwards or upwards. It's controlled via sort of a long gear mechanism inside. And so if it is not holding in various positions, it means that some of the teeth on the gear tube or gear wheel are broken, and thus it is not being able to lock into place. The height for the seat is here, and this should lock into many different positions. As you can see, there are notches on the front of the shaft. This is one of the other areas that generally gets weak, and it's just a small adapter part on the back side here that can get worn down and cause it not to lock into place. So I think it should not be that hard to order one of these adapters if you try to contact stock, or if you get another used model in order to swap parts and stuff, but that's of course a decision as to what is worthwhile for you money-wise. But this is also an area that can have problems if you're buying it used, as it is one of the mechanisms that can take a lot of wear and tear over time. Another mechanism that's important to look at is the locking mechanism here. So pulling up this pin, on the older models it'll be a flat clip. This will pull this up, and then there's this little safety catch, and this should lock into place on the other end, and it's not in this case, which means that there it goes, lock into place like this. The front wheel was in the way, and then when you release it, it will fall back out and lock there. When it's in its lock position, you want to look at how much wiggle is going on here. This is an older one, and it's actually having a little bit of trouble locking in the bottom. So this is a bit too much wiggle room here for this mechanism. So that's something you want to look at when you're buying it. Most important area on the bottom here is actually that this back end in relation to the shaft does not move much this way. If you see that this whole back end is kind of sliding side to side, it means that there's damage to this the main shaft, and that's going to be very hard and costly to fix, as it will involve a lot of main parts for the stroller itself. Moving on down to the wheels, you can release the wheels here. We'll have a look. So you have the axle holding the wheel, needs to be tight, and the ball bearings. You want to make sure the ball bearings are not split. You'll notice this on the stroller itself. If you have too much movement here as well, then that's an indication you have troubles with your axles or your ball bearings. So you want to examine them. As you take the wheel off, you can also look at the brake system. And when you depress it on one side, it moves on the other. There's a wire that runs through the back end, and that can also sometimes break. or the parts inside where the wire attaches can come out of alignment or wear down and so on, and then your stroller won't break on one side. I want to test the brakes. On the front end, this has the newer front wheels and this lock. You want to check that they lock in place. You want to generally check that the fork is tight into the front end and that the wheels are tight on the fork itself. If you try to move it back and forth. In this case, they're nice and tight. If you notice that they are moving up and down, back and forth along the axle, it means that the ball bearings inside the wheels themselves are damaged, and this is a difficult set of ball bearings to replace. You're going to need hammers and pieces that can potentially break as you try to remove the front wheels. So all of these things are things you're going to want to look at mechanically in relation to buying a used Stokke Xplory. And we hope this video has been helpful. If it has been, we ask that you subscribe, as it helps us to continue making videos in the future. Thank you.